Good evening. So we are back in the church, thanks be to God. Last year at this time, we would have celebrated this apart from each other. And this week, but especially this day, are extremely meaningful to us priests. It's Holy Thursday, in which we celebrate the institution, but the creation, literally. You think about Jesus as the Word, the second person of the Trinity, creating the earth and the universe. He's creating, at this Last Supper, the beginnings of the church and the new life that would come through his death and resurrection. Namely, on this night, he creates the priesthood and the Holy Eucharist, which is him. And so everywhere across the world, us priests not only celebrate these two tremendous gifts, but also our own ordinations. And having been through last year, having no one here, I can tell you it is much more meaningful having the people of God to celebrate with us as we rest in our ordination to the priesthood. This last year, I've learned more about life in the wake of my dear mother's death than maybe I have over the last decade plus. There's something about death that brings everything into perspective. Something so final about it that it qualifies everything else. It qualifies all that we care about, purifying our lives completely of that which doesn't matter. And there's a lot of things in our lives that don't matter. Well, at the same time, death has a way of bringing everything in our hearts to the surface, revealing in a moment that which we really love, and causing us to cherish that love with everything that we are. And in that sense, it's a tremendous gift. And so on this night, I ask you, in maybe a deeper and more profound way this year, if you were going to die tomorrow and you knew it, you had full knowledge of how and when you would actually die, and it was tomorrow, what would you spend this evening doing? Or maybe the better question would be, who would you spend this evening with? Now, maybe instantaneously the whole worldly construct comes to mind, right? Well, I better have my will in order. Is the mortgage paid? Who's going to get what? Is everything arranged as it should for my family? But you see, on this night, if we look deep into what Jesus is doing, he is teaching us a profound lesson. And as a matter of fact, he tells Peter that. You don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will later. Because Peter would have a night very similar to this, as would all the other martyrs. Now, in this lesson, we could start with the obvious practical. We might say he laid the cornerstone of the church by ordaining his first priests and instituting the most holy Eucharist, and we would be right. But if we go a little deeper, you will see that he is also teaching an example giving us an example of serving others, which is really quite profound. God, in the flesh, did not come to be served, but to serve. And so his last will and testament on this sacred night is to humble himself in the ancient world to a degree that we would not understand in our modern time. A little deeper still, and we behold the mercy of the most sacred heart of Jesus, as until the very end, he is extending this mercy to Judas, hoping, praying that the very friend that was going to betray him would change his mind. Because aside from our own choice against that salvation, the Lord's salvation is not beyond anyone. Even Judas could have been saved if he wanted it, if he believed in it, if only he would have asked. But at the deepest of all levels, when we consider that Jesus knows that he has arrived at his hour to die, when we contemplate what it would be like to be in that position with full knowledge of what is about to happen, it is from the depth of his heart that we see in the purest act of love that has ever existed what he gave to his bride, the church. The two greatest gifts of love that he could create. The priesthood, the perpetual, living, sacrificial, sacramental manifestation of himself. And even more precious, his body, blood, soul, and divinity through that priesthood in the Holy Eucharist. Because it is him. It is the most loving gift he could have possibly have given us. He was not thinking about himself on the night of his death. He was thinking about you and me and every other child that he would have in existence from the beginning of time till the end. As if he were to say, I promise I will never leave you. And in saying it, I love you personally so much that I give you me. Forever. Now, the gift of the priesthood was admittedly a bit of a gamble. And it was so from the beginning. If the Lord himself had Judas, the church could be assured that it would have its traitors too. And so it has been over the last 2,000 years. The scandal being the most recent manifestation of true betrayal. And so, as I have done before, I say again tonight, as a priest, if you have been unjustly treated by a priest or a priest has hurt you in any way, on behalf of all loyal, good priests that love our Lord in the church, I want to apologize to you, especially if it was me. As the apostles were, so are we. We are weak, simple men that are called to be priests. Unworthy and weak men chosen for a vocation that an angel would have a hard time perfectly carrying out. I remind myself every day at Mass that I am totally unworthy to stand at the altar and do what I am about to do, but by the grace and mercy of God. And so on this night, please pray, my dear people, for priests. Pray for your pastor. Pray that God would send us holy and zealous priests to serve in the priesthood. And I want every young man to know that I have no regrets whatsoever about being ordained a priest. I love being a priest. I love Jesus, and I love the brotherhood that I belong to, and I love my life as a priest. It has been a life of tremendous adventure and experience, a life in which I have been so greatly blessed to be a part of so many families, knowing so many souls, and experiencing so much life and love and God on a level that most people will never know. If you feel that God is calling you to be a priest, then generously answer this call. If you think about the billions and billions of souls that have existed, to be called from the masses to be a priest is to belong to the very inner court of the King of Kings. To be an intimate friend of the Son of God. From this truth, there is no greater calling and gift that God could give a man. And it's not just for this life, it's forever. I am profoundly excited as to what it's going to be like in heaven. And finally, on this sacred night, there's the most holy Eucharist. Now, as we travel through these holy days to Easter, I want to open up what I'm going to say on Good Friday and Holy Saturday in particular, but briefly tonight, is a question for you, particularly in these unstable, complicated times that we're living in. What if we have and have always had all we need for any challenge from the Last Supper until now? If we believe what we believe about the Eucharist, and that belief is true, which it is, that the Eucharist is the real presence of Jesus, and Jesus is God, the real God, then we have God right here in our midst. And God can do anything that we need Him to do for us, including getting rid of this virus or anything else. Do we believe this? Do we believe it? And if the church actually does believe this, why are the churches still closed? Instead, there should be perpetual adoration all over the earth. Look at the results that we have had in the Diocese of Bismarck. Our churches are open. Our good bishop is navigated like a saint through this time. We've got adoration all over this diocese, and we're healthy. We're open, and we are worshiping because we believe. And so since this now is also part of the internet community, this night, as we celebrate the priesthood and Jesus in the Eucharist, two things that are intrinsically connected. I am calling on all ordained priests in the world to exercise your faith in Jesus Christ and the Blessed Sacrament and start daily adoration, in which we as the holy people of God are asking Jesus to fix this mess. We are not getting out of this unless God gets us out of it. It's not science, which He gave us. It's not government, which is against Him. It's Him. And He is right here. Do we believe it? Or has His very own priests denied and abandoned Him in a time when the church needed us the most? Do we have the faith to call upon His name and show the world that the new Israel, which is the Catholic Church, has a God? A God that loves His people and will answer if He's called upon, but only when He is called upon. A God who is sitting, waiting for His church to unify and call out to Him for salvation. Not only is the Mass and the Eucharist essential, it is in fact the only thing that matters. It is the most powerful thing that humanity has in existence on earth right now. And it is the one and only answer to everything, and it has been for 2 millennia, and when we have called upon Him, He has saved us. Because Jesus is God. And that's what we're celebrating now. And this priest and that priest believes it. My dear souls, as we come to receive Holy Communion tonight, realize in the depths of your soul that you have everything you need in that little tiny host. All that is necessary in Holy Communion. God Himself loves to enter into your heart. When He does this evening, ask Him sincerely, Jesus, please, Lord, help us. We need You right now in the times that we are living in. Praise be Jesus Christ.